And those are just some things that the kids from my center have spoken about.
So I do want to definitely state that you were right around Chantel around what the topic and it's not if you should be involved. We know that they should be involved. That's not a question. That's more of a statement, and we made it at the last meeting. But how they're involved is the next topic. And so we have options on what that looks like. It's just like where are we at with the option statement? And if I really want to see it, but does everybody there understand the options or have an option that they're comfortable with or not? Are we at that place of where is the place where I know it's safe? And if I really want to see, sorry, everybody there understand the options or have an option that they're comfortable with or not? Are we at that place? So it seems like a partnership program with Ashland City Schools, and they do the homeless dining and all of the things, different ways they engage. And so they just had a series where they have been in community shops like doing the youth engagement initiative. I think Aisha Shepherd is over there. Aisha Shepherd, different ways they engage. And Laura Elliott are over that project. And so,
and so if we were to look at options, I like the idea of engaging with other programs, but
and so as it's written right now. So one of the things, these are just possibilities of what we could do. So we could reshape this. We could reshape this and open it up and not have a specific organization listed and say we want to partner with all organizations to be able to create we could reshape this that, you know what I'm saying, we can just do that and just scratch that out and say right now. So yeah, these are just options. We can tailor it to meet what we're trying to accomplish.
I like the idea of all because when you say, because I didn't know United was here, but what we do want to do is make sure that we use Black-led organizations that are working with the youth they're comfortable with, because when you talk about United Way, actually, county, that's where our kids have the most issues. So why not, like my daddy taught me that, whatever it is that already works with the youth and that are making leeway for the youth and have good relationships, that's where you're going to get the information from those organizations that are already doing the work and that they're Black-led. Like my daddy taught me that, whatever it is that already works with the youth and that are making
so anybody else have comments on this topic?
This is open for youth activists, and I am certainly qualified. My name is Dwayne McAfee. I am honored to be here and talk with you guys. I couldn't help but make a couple of observations. I don't think anyone close to our age trying to exclude the youth from anything. We understand what they're doing. Honored to be here and talk. This commission was put together for reparations. It was not put together to undo all the injustices that are going on in the current day. Reparations has to do with the past. And if we're going to invite someone here, I want the 90-year-olds here. I want to talk to the 95-year-olds. That's where we're going to gain some wisdom and understanding. I don't know if the young people can appreciate the fact that they live in the greatest, most powerful country on the planet, because this one had a 250-year head start. You understand? So the youth will be included, and they will benefit if this committee does what it's charged to do. Because you guys are all over the place. Stick to what you're charged to. So the youth will be included. There are other ways to deal with the injustices that are going on in this community. The shootings. There are a whole lot of other things we can do as a community. This panel cannot be the be-all, do-all, because then you're setting yourselves up to fail. That's all you're doing. reparations only. That has to do with the past. Stop talking about the youth. Do your job, the youth will be taken care of.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's all you're doing. Reparations only. That has to do with the past.
So public comment is closed now, and so, I would like to make a motion to send this document and give what everybody's input was to the committee to come back with a proposal of what this looks like. And so we're creating a committee to handle this.
Oh, wow. Well, that's not, but get your committee before you try to tell us to vote on something.
So-
We're not ready. I'm sorry, Chairman. We are not prepared for this. Get your committee. This is not.
Consider at the next meeting. This is exactly why I did not want voting to take place on proposals that were initially introduced to the floor. Consider at the next meeting. I think that it takes time to consider things thoroughly, even though that does not mean that initial participation in use in our ongoing process. I think that it takes time to consider things thoroughly, even though that does not mean that initial participation in use in our ongoing process. Yes, I think time to consider participation in use in our ongoing process. Yes, I favor table consideration. Say aye.
Mr. Chair, we just tabled this particular action. What is the chair? Mouse on our timeline, we just tabled this particular action. What is the chair? The next mouse on the same timeline, we just tabled this particular action.
Also, in that post-meeting survey, if you have any additional, input on that, feel free to. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packets, you should see a presentation, that is entitled Reparations Project Activity. In your packet, and recommendation development process presentation. And I'm going to move to the podium to present. In your packet, and recommendation and my apologies for those with their backs. To the podium to present a little bit of configuration of the room today, but this will appear on this large screen as well as configuration of the room for others. This will appear on this large screen. So let me just first start by saying that we have certainly heard the concerns about all of the discussions thus far being about the process. And I know that everyone is ready to move into the actual work groups and the activities for which you were brought together. What I'd like to do is offer the framework. We've touched on it, but this is the proposed framework for the reparations project. What's happening when, to answer a lot of those questions that have come up. And immediately following the presentation on the project activities, I will also talk about the recommendation development process, also for input, for you all to have a chance to provide feedback on considerations in that area. For you all to have a chance to provide feedback. So there are 9 activities for this project. We have already, of course, completed 2. We are now in activity 3, which is the racial equity, reparations, and impact focus area research. This activity is actually scheduled to take place over the course of 7 months. And I'm going to take a deeper dive on what is included as a part of this activity. Following activity 3, you will is concluded before you can start developing those recommendations that you deem to be immediate. And we'll talk about these criteria in just a second. As you can see here, we have short-term, medium-term, and long-term recommendations as a part of the process. And then we'll close out by bringing all of that together in a final report. The duration, once the commission has been seated, and it looks like we'll be here for 24 months, roughly. We do want to make sure that we are not compromising, rather, quality over artificial deadlines. We want to make sure that we're doing it right. And so at any point you feel that there needs to be adjustments in this timeline, this is controlled by the commission. This is just merely a framework that we will hopefully operate by so that we can drive towards completing those deliveries. This is a diagram of what those activities look like. As you can see, once again, we have activity 3 and activity 4 running in parallel with activity 3 to be followed immediately by the other recommendation categories that you see on your sheet. To be followed immediately by. So let's talk about what all is entailed in activity 3 in each of the activities, and I decided to start with those that are most important right now. So as a part of activities, and we want to make sure that every single commission member, also the community, has a baseline understanding of reparations. We don't want to embark or go too deeply in this work unless everyone is on the same page of what reparations is and what it is. Too deep, because there are some decisions that need to be made. So that baseline understanding will be informed by expert testimony. We had one scholar at the very first meeting. There are others that we're reaching out to. We hope to have the next one at the very next meeting on July 18th. But those experts also will come from the community. We've already talked about youth engagement. There are others that have talked about making sure that we have those who have been incarcerated to speak to the commission. There are a number of different groups that are important from when it comes to hearing their voice, and we want to make sure that we bring them in on this process as well. A part of this is also to make sure that we have a comprehensive document of the harm. The good news is that there's been a lot of work done to make sure that by a number of different groups when it comes to what has caused the disparities for Black athletes. So we want to compile as much of that as possible. That information is critical when you put forward these recommendations, because you will face legal challenges. We're certain of that. But if we can demonstrate that we have a connection between the recommendation and the harm, we stand a better chance of these recommendations succeeding and being able to implement them. So we want to make sure that we have the end in mind. That's why it's important to talk about a recommendation development process. What does that look like? So we want to make sure that we have a documented or a document that outlines that harm and the related policies and the programs that cause that harm. We want to make sure that, and as a commission, there are some decisions to make when it comes to the approach as well as the forms of redressing the harm for Black athletes. Dr. Darity talked about direct payments and some of the challenges with that. You all have to decide if direct payments are on the table. That's up to this commission to decide. You have to decide if the investments are going into programs that will focus on racial equity to address those disparities. But once again, decisions that have to be made as a part of this commission. Additionally, eligibility criteria. who qualify for reparations. There's a lot to discuss there. There are those that have been harmed by those policies and programs that no longer live in this geographic location. Those are questions that need to be answered, and hopefully, based on that baseline understanding, hearing from different groups, nationally, as well as those local groups that have actually implemented reparations, you'll have a better idea of what direction you as a commission would like to go when it comes to those areas. And so the key deliverables in activity 3 is that comprehensive document that I mentioned, the eligible types of redress that you all want to have on the table for the work groups to be aware of, and also the eligibility criteria for reparations more generally. So those discussions will be had as a part of this activity. For activity 4, once again, this will run in parallel with those discussions. We heard from you that you did not want to wait until the end of this research activity to start developing recommendations. The major concern had to do with the election coming up in November. And so we have added this phase. This one was not there originally, but just once again, in hearing from you, we introduced this one, and you all will develop a list of topics meeting that immediate criteria, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. Solicit input from community members and subject matter experts around those topics. Assess each recommendation, and develop a final list of immediate recommendations, and then present those to the City Council and the Board of Commissioners. So once again, the key deliverable here is a prioritized list of immediate recommendations. And if I could just pause here for just a moment. So once again, the key you may want to submit one recommendation at a time. The challenge with that is you don't have a prioritized list. Some things may be considered that you find not as high of a priority as some other things that may be considered as a part of your deliberations. And our recommendation is to develop a slate of recommendations that can be submitted with priorities, with estimates when it comes to costs, and other items that I'll be talking about shortly. But at least that is what we are recommending as it relates to a project team. So the other areas are very much the same when it comes to the short-term recommendations. The key deliverable there, of course, will be that prioritized list of short-term and medium-term and long-term recommendations. I will say that in the long-term recommendations, one of the things that we have talked about, at least as a project team, that we certainly want to put forward to the commission, is possibly having or conducting an external impact analysis. We anticipate these long-term recommendations being the most costly. We may want to get more supporting information on the impact anticipated from implementing these long-term recommendations, just to try to once again get it over the finish line, to try to have more supporting information to get it over the finish line. Once again, it'll be up to the commission if you all want to take advantage of that, but that was something that we had thought about as we pulled together this framework, that is a possibility that will be explored. And then, of course, the final report. Any questions about these phases, these activities, the final report?
I do have Madam Consultant, thank you. That was a very well put demonstration. I just want to say that the City Council has said that they want wealth creation. Is that the parameters? I know that we've been given our charge, but a lot of times we're reminded of what that charge is. And they demonstrated that they want real wealth creation. For instance, if we were to talk about methodologies of wealth creation, home ownership and business ownership, then just for an example, going back to that, a disparity study, which we don't have, something that's simple, but it costs. The other questions that I would pose is that we also need to develop budgets all along the way, the short-term, medium, short-term, medium, all of that. So that's all that I would say. That makes it logical and makes it come to life. And folks with budgetary authority thinking they're more responsible when we can put a price tag based on what we discussed. So I would certainly advise you to do that. The city council has pretty much expressed that it's not about real wealth creation. Based on what we direct payments, we don't have the bands for. We can get into all the kinds of
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And to your point, and you're going to see this in the next section here around recommendation development. What you just described is the impact for that recommendation. And so that's something that would certainly be a part of what the work group just was pulling together to be able to clearly document what that expected impact is if approved. Any other questions, comments? What that expected impact is.
I would like that to look. Can you speak about that? Like I just want to like how would you like to see that look? I would like that to look.
I'm sorry, how what looks?
We talking about the reparations process, all the logistics that need to build up the process. And I'm listening, and I'm like, well, I wonder what she may think, right? How it is, logistics that need. Does that make sense?
You mean in terms of what the recommendations might be?
What was the whole process? Like how would that actually look in real time? Like, is your honest opinion?
You mean in terms of what the recommendations might be? And I don't know why.
I think what's going on here is that what's going on is that she's addressing the commission, and your comments I think should be for public comment. But if you don't mind, let me just say something to you about it. Is that what we're trying to do is pull together recommendations to repair the damage in all these different areas of housing and education and economic development and justice and in healthcare. And each of the sub areas will address that and how best to do it. And the format kind of depends on what they identify as being the major issue that each sub areas will address. So it'll come in form of policies and more
question out of curiosity. I'm here learning as well about it. So thank you.
It'll come in form of policies and more.
So if there are no further comments, and let me just also say once again, we welcome any input, any refinements that you all would like to see with this process. But we just believe that it's important that the framework is understood to understand where we are today and where we're headed. So the recommendation development process, we're really looking at 5 different categories. Okay. We have introduced one, we're actually 2 now, one that we're calling global, because that the recommendations may not fit into the impact focus areas that have been developed, and I'm going to show you some examples of that in just a moment. And then, of course, the immediate, short-term, medium-term, and long-term recommendations that I mentioned. So the elements and key considerations for recommendations, and these are the things that our work groups need to be mindful of. Templates will be developed once we have received your input on these considerations. But of course, you would want to state what the recommendation is. You want to indicate which impact focus area this relates to. If it crosses multiple impact focus areas, that's how we're defining global recommendation. The recommendation type, it may be a program, it might be a direct payment, or it may be but those types will be defined by the commission. A description of the harm, as I mentioned before, to lay out the case as to how this connects, this recommendation connects to policies or programs that were were in place that caused the disparities that exist today. So making sure that there is a connection to that harm. A detailed description of what you'd like to see with that recommendation. The expected impact, as Ms. Williams actually said, and in what category that might take place. The estimated cost. That was part of the resolution to include cost information for recommendations. That was part of the priority. So once again, the list and what are the priorities, and the work groups will help to formulate that. But the final vote, the final vetting will be done by the full commission. Perhaps, and I say perhaps, if you want to think about a high-level implementation plan, kind of, once again, we're thinking about getting over the finish line and when you would expect this to be implemented in support of what you are putting forth to the city council and the county commissioners. Time frame for implementation. This is another area that I consider to be very critical as well. And this is conducting a risk assessment around that recommendation. There may be some recommendations that you want to put forth, quite frankly, that might violate the state constitution. You can still put them forward, let me be clear, but you just want to make sure that you're making an informed decision about it. So that's where our recommendation, once again, is to invite in different experts, legal experts who have already spoken to you before, to give their thoughts about what you are contemplating before you develop your final list. And once again, you are empowered to decide what will be on that final list. But this input is very important. So some of those areas, of course, legal, there might be some budgetary risk, direct payment might be one of those examples. But once again, having discussions around what might need to be overcome in order to actually implement what it is you're putting forward. And then lastly, once again, this isn't all inclusive, but are there risks to implementation? There may be some capacity issues within communities that you might want to think about, start talking about, start acting on, perhaps even, just to make sure there is success on the other side. But having that discussion is critically important as you are developing each recommendation. And there may be an organization that would be fiscal agent, especially if it's a specific program that you're recommending. And you may want to include some information about that organizational fiscal agent as well. So those are just examples of key considerations, but elements of the deliberation within these work groups that are really important. And if you all have ideas, suggestions about others that you'd like to see all work groups consider, please let us know.
So thank you so much for all this excellent information. But what I would really like to hone in on is disparate effects and the data that we demonstrate that. How are we to get that? Because the committee should be well informed so that we can surmount any legal challenges as well. We have to operate and show disparate effects based on our presence in the population. So are there going to be subject matter experts like the city's data department and Eric Jackson and so forth, and the police data analysts that we have access to, which will help our communities when we need it. So I just want to make sure that we're detailed enough.
I will.
No, you're fine.
I will touch on that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I just want to make sure that we're detailed enough.
This is very much, thank you. This is very much in line with the United Nations as international reparations are considered. And because of that, I'd like to add one more, is that they're concerned about also including preventative measures to the re-emergences of those things that cause the disparity. I know it's a pessimistic viewpoint of viewing inclusive as forever re-emergence. That is the icon. Exactly what we have experienced here is that pass a law, folks figure out a way around it, and keep the same outcomes they've always had. So the the idea of if these focus groups have become specialists in this area, we'll figure out the right best place to also talk about preventive measures for the rebirth.
Absolutely, and Chairman Mullin also talked about the importance of enforcing the laws that are already on the books, as well. So once again, just to make sure that that there is not the continuation. And and as you all hear from more scholars around reparations, that is part of that definition to be able to reach a point where there is closure, because systemic racism no longer exists. So it is about what's happening also today in order to be able to reach that closure. Once again, just want to make sure that everybody has a baseline understanding of that. But thank you for that. So as I mentioned before, global recommendations across multiple reparations impact focus areas. And they will be developed, and one example of that are those policies developed by the Commission. Once again, direct payments, eligibility criteria, just to name a few, so they don't fall into a particular impact focus area. This is some criteria that we have pulled together initially, but once again, welcome your input on this. Immediate recommendations are those that Commission members deem to be important. The expected impact will be high. Implementation time frame within 6 months. Time sensitive, yes. And if time sensitive, what is or are the key milestone dates? So once again, we have put October as a key milestone date in the project plan for immediate recommendations. Just in thinking about the election time frame based on the feedback that we've heard thus far. You all may want to tweak this criteria, but just want to give you some examples. For short term, still looking at high importance, high expected impact, but implementation time frame within 1 year. For time sensitive, we're happy to know it could be yes, but that's something that you all can decide. Medium term, 1 to 3 years. Time sensitive. Long term recommendations, 3 to 5. That's just the high level criteria that's been developed. And then lastly, just to touch on the process a little bit more, and I think that it also ties into the discussion that we had around youth engagement. Just to touch on the very first thing is to develop a list of recommendation topics to assess around youth, and that list can be formed, by work group members. Commission members may say, I have an area that I'd like for the housing, for example, to take and to pass that on to that group. So commission members can share their ideas across work groups, but also community input. It's my understanding that we're already starting to hear from different groups about some things that they would like for the commission to take up in their deliberations around recommendations. We can look at formalizing the submissions from the community. That could be done as a survey. Each work group may want to do it. It might make sense to do a global survey so that community members aren't getting hit by multiple surveys. But this is the opportunity to solicit from community members on what topics they'd like to see included on this list for assessment by the work groups and by the commission. For each of those recommendations, give some thought to how you plan to assess that recommendation. This gets back once again to Ms. Williams. Identify the information you need, and the city and the county, they are already on the ready to provide data. They have been preparing for quite some time to do that. All of those data requests will come through the project team, and we want to make sure that we have all of the information that you need. If it's not coming from the city or the county, there are other sources that can be tapped, but you just need to let us know what information you need first to get public input on the assessment plan. There's an opportunity for more community engagement there. And I also want to just mention that with these work groups and these discussions, there's been talk about having meetings in the community. There are opportunities for work groups to come together just about anywhere. We have to publicly notice those work groups, but there are more opportunities because they're smaller in size, because the size of this commission makes it a bit of a challenge in finding a venue. But definitely encourage you to do more in the community as a part of your work in this area, but also as a part of getting additional community in the community. You will then conduct your assessment, reviewing the data, digesting the information that you have received. If there are additional experts that you want to bring in, we can make sure that you have those at the table too. You will then develop those prioritized recommendations, and I say draft because the final vote has to be done by the full commission. The commission will review and share their comments. We recommend public input on that draft as well, so that you can see what community thinks about the list that you are looking to put forward. And then once that's done, you can develop that final list of recommendations to be voted on by the full commission. And then finally, the chair and the vice chair will present those recommendations to the council and to the commission. So that is an overview of just how recommendations. We are at least suggesting that recommendations be developed. Yes, Ms. Harris.
I have one question. You said that you could go into the communities, and I love that idea. If, say, the housing group wanted to go into the community, what constitutes a committee? I know that there is an initial number that you can take to a community. I want to make sure that if the housing group goes like to Hillcrest or to Diva View or whatever, how many of that group can go over there without being called a meeting?
A public meeting, right. So right now, none of the work groups make up a quorum. So that's what's key. So all work groups are far below 13 and make up a quorum. And we are still refining those guidelines. We want to make sure that we're giving you all the best guidance. And so we will have additional consultation with the city and county attorneys just to make sure that we're all.
But since you touched on that, and maybe it's going to come out later in our presentation, the community engagement of our work. So like I know you need it streaming, like when we've been having these conversations, I think somebody just added it to the agenda. Like I know you need it streaming, like oh, you back there, I'm sorry, added it to the agenda, and I know it's gonna be touched on, so I was just wondering, is now or is it touched on? Like where we can actually get more input, be in community, hosting like our smaller communities.
So, in working with your liaison, your project team liaison, you all can have discussions on where you think it might be best to be fully empowered to do that.
So we empower.
The challenge is having a full commission meeting. We would love to do it. We talked about sites like Bennington Center and different places. If you all have suggestions where we can host this room, then please let us know. That's the challenge. But that same restriction is not on the work. And we hope that you take full. Please let us know. That's the challenge.
As the work groups are needed, let me remind you all, please appoint someone that can be a spokesperson and someone who can record your activities. Right? We need the archives. Appoint someone that needs the archives, be a spokesperson and someone who can record your activities.
Do it.
Okay, so part of the discussion is to throw out to the commission, who you recommend the sites. I don't see why do you do that behind the scenes to have that discussion as the commission members here. Exclusively behind the scenes, I'm saying. I think we should start the conversation here about what sites are available here. And then we can probably do the work after that to kind of see what they are. Start the conversation here about what sites are available.
Because now that leads me to the question, we're gonna make that recommendation. You said you thought of things like the Edison Center. So what was the hold up? Because I know that Jim figured out the house this. I'm just trying to figure out like what was the restriction that prevented us from being able to use places like that, or Stevens Lee, like places that Shallow Center that are predominantly like parking for Shallow Center. Okay. But Stevens Lee and Edison Center, I heard it's not.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, and that is a very important point too, and thank you, Ms. Reels, from the city of Asheville. We have, if it's a full commission meeting, we also have to make sure that we have the technology in the room to do the streaming, for a public meeting.
Can I be a turn say that is necessary
The technology.
for the work?
For the work groups, it's not, at least the current guidance is that it's not necessary to stream those, that's why you have more language. For the work groups, at least the current guidance is.
But as the work groups form into the, I would appreciate if you would forward your time and place so that we all can be on the same page, because we have individuals who want to be on more than one group. They have been assigned to your group, but you may also be interested in a different thing, and I can't communicate that to them unless you don't forward your time and place to them or to the technical.
Yeah, and Chairman Mullen, we will also put it out there, just to let you all know, if you all want to serve on another work group or just sit in, we will publish that, just for everybody. So that you all want to serve on another work group or just sit in, we will publish that, not that quick.
Just because I took the virtual age post-COVID, and I got processed things differently, and I can have meetings and conversations, and like just because I just like when I'm traveling, I can have meetings with 30 people in the room, train and do all of those things. Anyway, so being that we do have funding, we designate 30 processes, can we not get equipment so we can be able to do, because this kind of prevents the engagement in a lot of ways, and like it's almost like isolation in my mind, because I'm just like it prevents engagement in a lot of ways. And even being in this space is really not big enough making it work. You see what I'm saying? So if there's a way that we can invest, especially being in this space, and community engagement, to be able to invest in a way that gives some portable options so that we can be in different locations and community engagement.
So if you all will permit me, I'd like to modify that survey instrument that will go out after this meeting to ask you if you have any suggested sites, and we will do more research on the technology just to see if we can make more of those work, but would like to start with the actual venue that you might recommend. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Brenda Mills. I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion for the City of Asheville. Sorry. And just wanted to kind of go over, I know my name is Brenda Mills, Vice Chairwoman, little talked about, but so we're going to talk a little bit about what the city is proposing. And then my counterpart will be talking a bit about what the county is planning to do. So our initial funding, today, FY22, we did an initial investment of $2.1 million. For FY23, we're proposing $500,000, $500,000. Okay. want to tell them?
There's a page that says Q and A, and then there's.
You have a presentation next page.
There's a page that says Q and A, and then
like I said, staff recommendations for our city council approval tomorrow night. Our budget will be approved tomorrow night. Our meeting begins at 5 p.m. You can watch that by streaming it or you can attend. The one note I want to make is that we are back in city council chambers tomorrow. So you can come in person. We'll be streamed on YouTube and you can get all that information. Our initial investment was $2.1 million. If you remember, we had funding from the sale of White Labs property, and we put that into reparations. For FY23, we are suggesting $500,000, and then our expense to date was our contract with Texas, Ms. Jones, for $365,000. Current balance is $2,235,000, and then we're looking at doing future appropriations as funding is available at about $500,000 more each year. And then one of the last thing I wanted to talk about was the community benefits table, and to make sure I understood it. So I talked to the planning director today. New hotel development has the option to do community benefits in order to avoid having to go to city council for approval of their benefits. Community benefits include the reparations or affordable housing. They have to do one or the other of those. The majority, 50% of their points come from that. And then from that point, they can do other things like paying living wage to their employees, working with minority and women businesses on the project. So that is something they can take as an option if they want to skip having to go to council and have an approval there for their benefits. The planning director spoke to me today and said we're looking at other community benefits being added to other types of development. That's not approved as yet. Now, answer any questions about the city. Other community benefits being added. Thank you for your time. I'll be here after. I'm sorry.
And so I just want to make sure I'm understanding, because it is a budget, if y'all seen it on the back of that sheet. And so I just want to make sure I understand the proposal. And so the $500,000 that's been recommended, let's say from 365 to 500,000. And so it's being recommended for this year, right? And so I guess I'm just struggling because I know we had a conversation as a commission around making the recommendation, which has been voted and approved by this commission, council, to be in their budget in perpetuity. And so when I see a dollar amount, and that's the recommendation of staff, we had not taken into consideration of the things that we had already approved as a recommendation from this commission, just because city staff is a part of this conversation. And so it kind of throws me off when I see that, because then I see that the 365 was technically, that was already kind of contracted out. It's already contracted out with automatically, that's actually just putting us back where we started at. So it's like an additional $185,000 towards, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to process what's happening, because I know that y'all are part of this.
That's a really good question. So let's break it down a little bit. So we're not back to where we started. We are back to where we started, but we take out the fact that we spent money. So that's the 2.1 plus giving us $500,000. And we are, with the goal, from what I'm understanding, funding this budget for the one. But remember what Ms. Jones said, you need to come up with recommendations that have dollars. You can't fund something if you have no dollars. Remember, we do need that. That's going to be something we're going to be working on as we work through the short, medium, and long term goals. Does that help?
Yeah, because like I get presentation. That was the question.
You're talking about first.
I'm talking about, yeah, and not necessarily that, because we submitted it, and so our current balance to increase. If you said to take the ticket out, and the current balance, I just be so when I look at that, I'm like, so the increase technically was $235 because we started this. Y'all covered the cost of the development and creation, so technically we're working before we was $235. You see what I'm saying? So to develop this process out for both parties, which is fine. I'm not complaining about that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just trying to make sure I understand that even with the 500,000, the balance, if they consider it, will put us at this number, or would it be an additional 500,000?
No, this is the number, and I will talk to you about their proposal. We also have an account.
Okay, that's the part I was trying to make sure I understood. I'm like, so there's another 500,000 on top of this. Now that sounds like a place. Yes.
As our proposals are coming forward, long term, they will be added to these numbers.
Let me answer this. Thank you. What we'll do is your recommendation in terms of whatever the immediate ones that Devin talked about, and then your short term, they need to come in a package. But also, there's going to be some evaluation around what that cost is. In his hand, governing bodies that we want this. What does that cost? What does it look like? So that we can make decisions around budget.
So I would imagine that recommendations coming from the focus groups might take the form, might take the form of immediate resources that are needed and resources that are needed over repetitive time.
That's correct. So you have that seed money in the city, and then there's money appropriated for the county, which we're going to talk to you about in a little bit. So remember your impact focus group, which I'm excited that you're going to be starting that in July. That will feed into your meetings for approval. So that you can put together this is the short term, this is the medium term, and the long term. But it also needs an evaluation around cost. So we can kind of start, we don't ever stop doing this. We approve the budget in June, we start all over again in July. Get it through the audit, make it through September, and then the budget is September. So as soon as we can get those items, that would be great, and be specific.
I have a specific question with $5,000 cost outlay in addition to additional cost outlay. How do you pay $5,000?
What the city did was like, we're gonna replace what we paid on the contract, and we made it whole, so we made it $5,000. So it doesn't have a specific meaning under the we're talking about, and that's the idea is that at least that minimum will be put in like we do for affordable housing. And if you are interested in last city council meeting, there was a budget hearing. We can send you that. You can look at that meeting and the hearings and you can see what was said around that. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Devereaux.
In terms of reparations with the county and the city and the budgets, are there conversations happening on that level?
Yes, since last September.
In terms of reparations,
we're collaborating. We had to get you all. Absolutely. Last day yes, ma'am.
Would this be so when we submit our recommendations, because I'm just saying, like, these are two different things in my head. So this is what y'all are submitting to make that whole, and it brings us there. But what we voted on and approved is in perpetuity, and so we didn't set a price today, but more so we talk about percentages, right? And so I'll just be making sure that this is like one thing doesn't cancel out the other, right? And so you know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to make sure that that's not what's happening.
Okay. I think we talked about in our debrief meetings that we're going to have to write a letter to folks in the county and give that information. And that's something that they would consider. But also remember what your attorney said. Right? Now binds the council board of commissioners. They are being in good faith saying we want to put money. They also say we want to know what we're paying for. So there needs to be some specifics, and then we'll do some evaluation around what that would cost. They also say we want to know what we actually. All right, I'm gonna let Rachel.
Rachel Keaton is our Director of Equity Inclusion Office and Human Rights Officer for Bucks County. Rachel Keaton is our
So, good evening, everyone. Is my volume okay?
All right.
A little bit higher? Okay, thanks. So, as you all know, this is in your handbook, actually, that you got at your first meeting, and it's in your binder. You have a copy of the city and the county resolutions for this reparations project. So, as you can see, for hours, on August 4th, the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners passed its resolution to support community recommendations for Black people in Buncombe County. And so in that, you'll see that in addition to acknowledging and apologizing for the county's historic and ongoing role in systematic racism and injustice and oppression, it also states that it supports the formation of this commission to further study and make recommendations on reparations. So that's the place where I'm starting. So our budget, the Buncombe County FY23 budget, was passed last week, Tuesday, June 21st, and it includes $2 million that is intended to fund immediate and short-term recommendations by the Reparations Commission. This $2 million allocation is intended to fund the Board of Commissioners approved and accepted recommendations implemented by June 30th, 2023. So we are going fiscal year by fiscal year. That time frame encompasses what Deborah Jones shared with us as Activity 4 and a portion of Activity 5. And what we will do in the county will be to consider additional appropriations for reparations as appropriate and a part of each year's budget cycle. So, anybody have any questions, or do you want to pose any of the questions that you asked Brenda to be a part of each year's budget cycle?
Does the county have, I know we work in the city itself, they developed a community benefits plan. Does Buncombe County have such a plan for hotels? No, not yet. What about disparities study? Is that something that we could make a recommendation for them to fund into? They don't have disparities study, never had. No, not yet.
You can make a recommendation to that. And you asked Ms. Williams earlier if you had access to data analysts and so on that we have on city and county staff. We are staffed to support you all. And if there are specific things that you're looking for, you can share with us that or data that we already have from a number of different places in the county, then we can help to provide that for you. So yes, ma'am. So if there's anything that you all as a commission are looking for, we may be able to provide that available to us in the county. Yes, ma'am. So if there's anything that you all as a commission are looking for, we may be able to provide that available to us in the county.
We're at 7:43, and we're on Roman numeral 8, which is public comment. We're at comment 7:43, and we're on Roman numeral 8, which is public comment.
I only have 3 minutes, so we definitely try to keep it as short as possible. Am I loud enough?
Yes.
Oh, I only have 3 minutes, so we definitely try to keep it as short as possible. My name is Robert Elijah Thomas Jr., the Executive Director to Better Title. It's not embedded in white supremacy identified of the Racial Justice Coalition. The Executive Director, but the natives in the room, my people are the Baxters, the Thomases, and the Corners. But basically what I wanted to address is the line item that I saw on the agenda up there pertaining to community engagement. And we want to assist the Racial Justice Coalition, wants to assist with you all's permissions with community engagement. What we did not want to do overstep our boundaries and try to do it without coming to you all first, anything of that nature. We're already out in community, larger steps, and we want to actually coordinate with the city and the county and with as many other Black organizations as possible to help ease that burden off of you all, and also be doing it directed by you all, kind of to help ease that burden off of you all. I don't see y'all being able to spend hours and hours collecting community input door to door. We want to do community events. It's fun, entertaining, and infused with popular education. And we want to do this in collaboration with you all, with the county, and with as many other Black organizations as possible to help fill in and bridge the gap that exists in between the average community member that is most impacted by this conversation and this commission and governmental and municipal process. We have been out in community largely already, and I haven't ran into a Black community commission yet that is informed about the process that's going on pertaining to this. As you probably all have identified at several different meetings, there isn't even a common language as far as what the word reparations represents, what norms specifically that it is, supposed to be implemented on, or any of that. And we feel that there's a big need in the community to be informed and engaged, so that when the time comes, if necessary, community can also be mobilized to support you all with the recommendations and asks to come up. And I hope that I did not go over my 3 minutes. My elevator didn't come up.
Somebody back there had their hand up. Somebody back there in the way back had their hand up. By the podium, somebody back there. You did?
Well, I didn't have my hand up, but I like to say something. My name is Charles Wright, and I believe that, reparations shouldn't be about minorities and people of color. It should be about black people who are descendants of American slaves. And also I believe in, also reparations should be about cash payments instead of loans or having assistance. Also reparations should be about cash payments. That's what I say. Instead of loans.
Thank you very much. Others, public comment?
Hello, my name is Jensen Gelfond, and I'm part of a Racial Justice Coalition Reparations-Based Solidarity Circle. It's my goal to aid this commission in whatever way that I can. And I just wanted to speak to something I saw today when the kids were in the room. I thought that was an incredibly powerful opportunity to empower these kids to somehow be a part of this experience, and somehow things got a little bit lost in the mix where the kid, folks were asked to speak, and luckily we did get some speakers of folks who were leading the kids, but we didn't get any of the kids speaking today. I could tell they had nervous energy. They were ready to speak, but they were shy, and they weren't given the opportunity to speak. Maybe if they were asked directly to give their name, say a little bit, they would have spoken, and they would have had a memory about speaking at the Reparations Commission meeting, but that memory is not going to happen. The memory was that essentially people on the commission started speaking, and the kids shortly thereafter left the room. Something sad to see. But there will be lots more opportunities to engage with kids. And I know that we're putting aside an imperfect plan today to try to make a more perfect plan tomorrow, but I really hope that these kids are engaged. It's very important to get the entire community engaged. This commission is a non-binding commission, so we hope that the city and the county will go along with everything you say, but it'll really help a lot if people are banging on the doors of the city and county supporting the commission. And part of that is definitely getting the kids involved, getting the buzz on the street, getting this whole town talking about reparations and really engaging with it. And I think that means when you all make your recommendations that there will be a whole huge group of people behind you supporting you for that. And I do think the kids will play an important part. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak in public comment?
I'll say we should avoid calling the youth kids, because that is something that will be seen as disrespectful. When I was their age and I presented to kids, it was something that I saw as disrespectful. I saw a lot of naked youth kids, because that's the only thing I had. When I was their age and I presented to kids, it was something that I saw as disrespectful.
I just, okay, I'm gonna take one. First of all, I think that what people don't understand
everybody in this room that's on this commission, we don't know each other. First of all, we don't live in the communities together. We don't have that type of connection or communication. So we're being put together to do something that we may not even really know each other. That's number one. Number two, I have to refer back to what Dwayne said about reparations and what it is. That's number one. I personally, I know Dee. Dwayne said, I started out at Hill Street, all black school. And in the 6th grade, I was marched to William Randolph for all white school. And when I was in Hill Street, all of my books were 2 years behind the white kids. And we had to cross out their names, did we, Dee? And put our name, and that's how far behind we were. That's, you talking about reparations? Let me tell you about reparations. You may look at us today and see that we look this way, but we struggle. We struggle for every young person that comes through that door to have the opportunities that we didn't have. We had to make to walk into a white school and they look at you and they tell you, go in the gym because they don't know what to do. They didn't know how smart you were, but we achieved. We did better. They took every school out of our community. Y'all want to talk about reparations? They didn't know how smart. You go back and you look at all the schools that closed down. Shiloh, Livingston Street, made them into now their community, their parks and recs. You want to talk about reparations? Talking about our kids don't have anywhere to go. Our kids in Shiloh have they can't go. They have to ask permission to see if they can go in with the pickleball, with the softball, and with the basketball. So now we want to talk about, as y'all go into all these focus groups for reparations, you got to realize there's people in this room that set the tone for these young people to be able to talk. Because we couldn't say anything. We had to sit down and go to class, and then we were at Ashford High doing the riot of '69, and they treated us like we were prisoners. So you're talking about reparations. We want you to step back and you think about what we went through. When that was over, they said we rioted, but we didn't. We didn't riot. We just wanted the same opportunity everybody else had. And when we went back to school, it was the National Guard Army. Am I right? We was at every hallway with guns, and we were kids. So when y'all start talking about reparations and what we need to focus on, be please, in your focus group, think about something that will bring back to what they took from us. Because that's what they took from us. They took out school. They made us go to the white school. They didn't bring the white kids into the black community except for Hill Street and South French Board. That's all I want. They made us go to the white school. I just had to say that because I've been sitting on that.
Wrap up, last word.
I realized I didn't make an ask. My ask is it okay for us to move forward? We would actually like to move forward as soon as possible with the city and the county pertaining to community engagement, integration plans, and all that good stuff.
The community needs to have full parameters on what we get community groups so that folks aren't misrepresented. Just like city council has parameters for us to operate. We just can't let them charge different groups to go out. We need to know every word that comes out, every piece of paper that goes out, and that working committees on it. It's going to be a confusing enough process without a lot. There's folks running around. That's all.
Yeah, I don't want to go out and represent the Reparations Commission. What I want to do is assist in the information y'all covered today should be common knowledge those in the community. What I want to do.
I think that what we're looking at here is the basis of partnerships that will stretch across several groups.
Yeah.
And working out of that partnership and details of that partnership. I am very happy to serve you all once meeting.
So I do want to say something because I am definitely a supporter of OJA, and I'm gonna be intentional. And one thing is they do not send out information that says that they send out the post. They do it for all the city council meetings. If you go to their website, you will see exactly what they do. They send out the meeting dates. They send the link. They send you an email if you sign up for the email list, and you'll know about every commission meeting. the agenda. They got the course type, just like they get it on the website. They make it easy, so it's easily accessible, which is what I brought up first. Was talking about community engagement and how it's going to be easily accessible when you have to scroll through the county website or the city's website to get to the information. And so what they do is make a link, click on the link, and go straight to their page, and a lot of community really engages with it because it's easy. They don't have to shuffle through a million pages to get to the information. And it's educational. They don't add words, they take the link, make it into a play, you click it, and take you right to the information that we freely disseminate on Buncombe County and City's website. So what harm is it to have it disseminated on a Black website that's the same link that we do on City County? I think that's the confusion of what he was saying when he was offering it to the community, is that they're not creating documents, they're linking the documents that we have with the reparations because they really do have real connections in the Black community all the way across Ashland and Buncombe County. So I would honestly support and think it's needed so more people have access to information versus it's not. And that's just, I just want to speak to that because I think there was some confusion around what they do. And that's how they get the information out to the community. They share the meeting, or they'll be meeting on this day. I had to send emails out because people didn't go to the email, to the link, to the city website, or the county website. I literally had to copy emails and send emails out so it was easily accessible to get people to come to this.
And we want to take it a step beyond that and actually go to people's doors and have real life conversations about the issues. And also take questions that you all may have to them to you all's level. I understand your
We'll do this.
And the way that, I'm sorry.
All the things that we're discussing, I was wanting to allow the attorney to speak to the legalities of the partnership. Wanted to allow the attorney to speak to the legalities.
So just in wrapping up, there are just a few items. Several commission members have expressed an interest in having a 1 to 2 day meeting. I think the term used was retreat, but it would have to be a public meeting. And the intent is to take a deeper dive, spend more time around certain issues. The project team will be reaching out to you all just to poll interest and also understand availability that we can bring forward at the next meeting. The next meeting is July 18th from 6 to 8, and the location will be shared a little later. I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on the next meeting. It's shared a little later.
Another point that needs to be made here, and I know that you all are tired of saying this, but it feels the process by which we are operating our whole process here, motions, chairs, all these processes and procedures. What we're trying to do in substance is new. We're trying to use these old processes to address something that we have never been able to do. So as we make a mess of it, and as I embarrass myself up here, you all understand that we're headed towards a goal that we're going to earn. Make a mess of it, and as I embarrass myself, we're going to work hard, do our work. You all understand, and it's coming. That we're headed towards coming. I'd like to acknowledge the food, y'all. This was Mama Sita's, I think. Yeah, Mama Sita's country is coming, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you all making time for us to come out. And our next meeting is July 18th to be notified. And I appreciate you all making time.